Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens. This is Jake along with Scott, and we are rejoined by Greg Metze of Old Elk Distillery. And Greg, we are so excited to have you back. You have a great history and passion for just whiskey in general, but to see where you all are continuing to go from the Old Elk brand, we're really excited just to dive in and know what's going on in Colorado and what you all are, planning on doing. But first, just how are things? How have you navigated COVID and all that stuff over the last, 2 years?
Well, it's certainly thrown a wrinkle into the business life, and in some ways, actually for the good. I think the virtual platform was born of COVID, and I actually think it's a platform that's going to stick around. You can reach a lot of people throughout the whole country, and not spend a whole lot of time traveling. It's not quite the face-to-face exchange that you would normally get, but it still works quite well. So, we've been doing a lot of that platform, obviously during COVID, and continue to do that, a lot of that platform going forward. So, it's been good. Yeah, we're Old Elk as a company is continuing to grow. We're doing well, and always looking to bring new quality products to the table. So. Definitely appreciate you guys having me back. It's been about 1.5 years. So, yeah, it'll be fun to catch up, and always a pleasure to hang out and chat with you folks.
Definitely. So, Scott, remind everybody, what episode was the last Old Elk episode?
I had to look it up, but it's episode 101. So, yeah, it was definitely 1.5 years ago, back in December of 2020. So, in the thick of it.
That's so crazy to think about that. That we've almost done 100 episodes since we last talked. Time is definitely flying, and that's for sure. Are you still, situated remotely? Are you still in Northern Kentucky or Cincinnati area and traveling out there occasionally?
Yeah, I still reside on the east side of Cincinnati. I'm still close to, all the inventory that I produce for Old Elk.
Yeah.
When I was still master distiller in Lawrenceburg. So, I actually pick the barrels that I want to harvest. I have them sampled. I evaluate them to make sure that they're the quality we expect before we ship them out to Fort Collins for harvesting and blending and bottling and all that. But now that COVID's over, traveling's starting to pick up. I was actually out in Fort Collins all of last week. Always nice to get out there and catch up with, how they're doing at the production facilities. One of the big new changes that we just instituted really in the last month is we've got a primarily fully automated bottling line that's brand new. So a big jump for us going from, totally all hand labeled and not necessarily filled, but hand labeled, hand packed and all that. So really fun to watch that machine do its work. And it's like watching a campfire, man. You can watch that thing all day long and just say, wow, it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm sure going from efficiency at its highest breadth and depth in your previous role to, a startup, and then seeing you all grow into that automation I'm sure it's rewarding and fulfilling to see that along the way.
It really is. And I can remember when, we were actually talking about last week when I was out there. I mean, my wife and I were on the very first bottling run, and that was probably 4 years ago about this time. And we had probably 10 or 12 folks, and everybody was just doing everything by hand. And, now, 4 years down the road, we've grown to a automated filling and bottling line. So yeah, it's a tribute to what the company's done in just 4 short years, and we continue to grow, which is terrific.
Speaking of Fort Collins and growth, like how's the team and production team out there? Are you all are laying down your own distillate out there as well too, correct?
We have a small craft distillery in Fort Collins, but really our business plan from the get-go is to build the brand first and then build the full-scale distillery. So we haven't reached that level of growth yet, but we're approaching it quickly. I think we were in the neighborhood of 100,000 cases last year amongst all of our products, and hoping to grow that significantly again this year. So, once we achieve the level that we want to get to, then we'll start looking into a full scale distillery to support our products going forward. But for the most part, we're still operating off the about 14,000 barrels that I produce for them. And we have actually laid down some new product this year, looking forward to potential gaps in the program, maybe 5 years down the road. So we have achieved the point where we have to start backfilling, some of the product that we've harvested already, and we have done that early this year. So again, it's just all examples of growth, and those are all good examples of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, 14,000 barrels doesn't seem like a small feat at all to go through. Most people would die to have 14,000 barrels at their collection. That would be endless whiskey for the rest of their lives.
What's going to be nice is that, as in the next couple of years, we're going to have some really nice vintage products coming out as well. I think some of our inventory is, I'd have to look. I haven't looked in the last couple of months, but I think we're pushing 9 years old. So you're likely to see some really nice vintage products coming out, maybe even this year, late or early next year. So all really nice stuff to look forward to, and all nice little things to keep consumers interested in the Old Elk brand.
Well, I think that's what's really interesting. Talking about keeping the consumer interested in the brand, right? You have your core lineup that has done really well. I love the wheat whiskey and the wheat bourbon. That's where my flavor profile kind of leans. But the blended has done really well as well. But keeping things interested, the one thing that started to pop up, even 6-7 months ago, was the Infinity barrel. I know Scott has it. I've not been able to try it, but coming out with these, kind of Masters blend series, like what kind of made you dip your toe into, that unique offering to keep people interested, because your core lineup was doing so well?
Well, these are all limited release projects. They're really not intended to compete with our core products, but again, they're limited release Master Series blends that we bring out to the consumer to just give them other things to look at on a small basis, and show the consumers what Old Elk's capable of. So the Infinity blend was the first one we brought to the table. That was just after the first of this year. And that's going to be an ongoing series. Last year's version was really, there'll be a story behind each new Infinity blend, if you will. The 2021 version was really built on legacy and heritage. The legacy part was my 44 years in the business at the time we put that together, or the time I put it together. And the heritage part was that we married up 6-year-old Old Elk Colorado whiskey with 2 vintage Kentucky bourbons from 2 different Kentucky distilleries. We had some 11-year-old product and 12-year-old product. So we were paying tribute to the heritage of Kentucky as well as Colorado whiskeys in that blend. 2022 version, I'm still kicking around ideas. I haven't formulated that one yet, but a portion of the 2021 blend will be held back and will be carried forward to the 2022 blend, and likewise. So it's somewhat of a perpetual blend, if you will. Yeah. Which the name Infinity implies. And then, after that, then we decided that we'd put together a double wheat and a 4-grain Master Series blend. Both those terms are becoming a little bit popular out there in the whiskey world. And one of the things about the Old Elk mash bills being custom and extreme is that I actually had the latitude of creating mash bills within mash bills by blending them. So the double wheat is a blend of Old Elk wheated bourbon and Old Elk wheat whiskey. And the double or the 4-grain is a blend of Old Elk flagship bourbon and Old Elk wheat bourbon. So again, because our grain ratios are so extreme, by blending them, I can actually create a different ratio of grains and flavors just by blending our own custom mash bills, which is what we did.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And we've talked about this a number of times. We had Blue Run on, and we've talked about this. I've talked about it when I was doing World's Top Whiskey Taster. What is your approach? You have infinity barrels, really, like to the average consumer, to go and blend from. Like, what is your, like, as a master distiller, right, and master crafter of whiskey, right? You don't get to your position and get to do what you did for a long period of time without doing this. Like, what is your approach to the blending process? I think it's just unique for people to hear about this because a lot of people have done infinity barrels at home or infinity bottles at home. And I really think it's really interesting when they hear from someone in the industry on how they set up or go about their blending process.
Yeah, I mean, probably everybody does it differently. I mean, first and foremost, you're always limited to whatever blending components you have on hand. So, you have to be able to blend within your inventory limitations. In the case of the first Infinity blend, why we had our Old Elk flagship bourbon had achieved 6 years old, so it's gaining maturity as we speak, and every year the profile changes a little bit because of the added age, and it's it becomes really a more flavorful product. But and we also had those vintage Kentucky whiskeys in our inventory, and we just thought it's a great time to we have established our core brands. They're always going to be our core brands. We've got the infrastructure laid. We're distributed in all 50 states. And the way our business plan was put together, that as we, progress down the road and have the opportunity to do new and different things, we're either looking to acquire other inventories that allow us to do that, or leverage what we have in inventory to do that. So, in the 2021 version, we just leveraged what we had in our own inventory from our early years before launching any of our brands. And it just made it, I will say, probably my best blend to date is represented by that 2021 version of Infinity Blend. And then really the approach was the same for the two Master Series blends, the double wheat and 4-grain. Again, we leveraged our own inventory. We have wheat bourbon and wheat whiskeys that are 6 and 7 years old for sure, and in some cases approaching 7 and 8. So again, just the core whiskeys were launched, they're established, and as we get some additional age, and we're able to leverage that inventory to create new things as well. So, for me personally, I don't really, when I blend, I'm just looking to come up with a really, I don't know if, for lack of a better term, just a really special product that is, follows the Old Elk DNA. It has to be world-class quality, and it just has to be, the blends. To me, have to be outstanding. I don't really blend for a specific taste or flavor profile, but I do my best to leverage everything we can out of the blending components that we're using. And so for me, it may be mixing up 7, 8 different blend ratios with the components I have on hand, and then evaluating those and picking the one that I think is special. And I'll tell you true, in both, really, in all 3 cases to date, the Infinity blend, the double wheat and 4-grain, the ratios that I thought were going to be the home runs never wound up being the home runs, because components just never marry up together like you think they will. And in all three cases, it was one of the other ratios that I would not have thought would have been the top choice. Actually, are the ones that stood out above all the others. So it's really a fun process. I mean, to tell you the truth, but there's no set calculation or anything. A lot of it's,
What's the secret?
Because every blend that I've made's not been nearly as good as the double wheat that I'm drinking right now.
So it's funny. I actually had a little bit of the wheat whiskey remaining on my bar, and I had moved all these bottles around because I had new floors installed. I had a little bit left, and I actually poured it and mixed it with the wheated bourbon to combine the bottles because I had like this much left of each. So I blended them. And now that you say that there's double wheat, I'm like, oh, well, now I got to go back and find that bottle.
Yeah, you made your own double wheat.
And taste it because that was a happy accident. But I'm sure it's probably nowhere near as good as the double wheat that you intentionally measured and blended. But yeah, now is that part of like where you say like marrying? Is that part of like the slow cut process, or is that more about proofing, or is that more about blending too?
Slow cut is really more about reducing from barrel proof to bottling proof. So in the three Master Series blends that we've been talking about, those are all for the most part cast strength. So slow cut would not be part of that process. But all of our core category products and custom mash bills that go on the shelf as Old Elk bourbon or bourbon wheat whiskey or rye whiskey. We do utilize that slow cut process, and really all that is just additional time and additional steps and additional expense that we take to improve the experience of drinking our products. But the real nuts and bolts of it is the process helps us preserve the really delicate flavors that we work so hard to produce through cooking, fermentation, distillation, maturation. And I don't know if we probably haven't talked about slow cut on your program yet, but basically when you reduce from barrel proof to bottling proof, it's actually a heat liberating reaction. You're releasing heat back into your product as you add the water. And when you do it in one or two steps, all the heat of reaction is all put back into your product all at once. And it can actually be enough to drive away the really delicate, low boiling flavor components that are in that distillate mix. So what we do is, rather than do it in one step, we do it in many, many steps over longer periods of time, which limits the amount of heat that goes into the product in any given step. So the amount of heat released from beginning to end is going to be the same, but by doing it in many steps over longer periods of time, you have less heat in any given step and less exposure to driving away those really delicate flavors. So it really is a way of bringing the highest quality products to the table that we can.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And because, I was drinking the wheated bourbon, and I think a lot of people and a lot of folks have cut their teeth on wheated bourbon, back in the day. We're not going to say the new consumer today per se, because, wheated bourbon, for a lot of us, that's been drinking for 10, 12, 13, 14 years or longer, they were able to get a Weller or, Maker's Mark, obviously, and some other wheated products that are out there. I think your all's wheated profile is uniquely different from what is on the marketplace. So like when you all were creating, your blends to stand out in the market, was that something you wanted to differentiate from a Maker's or a Weller or whatever, to just find your own niche? Or was it just like kind of happy accident? Like, hey, we cut it and we did our distilling process this reason, and it turned out the way it turned out?
No, it was all very intentional from the day we first started talking about it. So I met Old Elk in 2012. I was still master distiller in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Old Elk came to the plant. They wanted to get into the bourbon business, but they wanted custom mash bills. They wanted me to craft custom mash bills that were different than anything else that we had produced in Lawrenceburg for many other brands. And we probably talked about this in episode 101, but the first mash bill that they asked me to produce was Old Elk Flagship Bourbon. And I guess just to back up just a little bit, Old Elk's DNA is really built on two simple facts. It's bring world-class quality products to the table, and it's be different than everybody else on the shelf. So when they asked me to craft the Old Elk Bourbon, they told me they wanted the product to be smooth and easy. And to do that, I knew I had to get malted barley content way up. And as such, that bourbon became the highest barley content traditional bourbon on the shelf, 34% malted barley. After I produced that, probably about 8,000 barrels of that, then Old Elk came back to the plant and said, and we had discussions on, what do you think is going to be the next potential growing category 6 or 7 years down the road, which is exactly where we're at today. And at the time we had those discussions, rye whiskey was gaining traction like crazy. And, a lot of that was a result of the famous 95% rye mash bill that we were producing for many brands down there in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. But as a result of those discussions, we decided that wheat bourbon and wheat whiskey had some really nice players in that arena, but there wasn't a lot of players in that arena. So I told him I thought we should do an extreme wheat bourbon and extreme wheat whiskey and be different again than everybody else on the shelf. And that is, again, reflected in our wheat bourbon mash bill, which is 51% corn, it's 45% wheat, and 4% malt. So the wheat content is probably, I would say, double most of the other wheat bourbons on the market. And then wheat whiskey, we did the same thing. We did a 95% wheat, 5% malt. I would say most other wheat whiskeys on the market are probably 51% wheat. So again, we chose to go extreme so that we could be different than everybody else and bring some really nice new flavor profiles to the table.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing I get more. It's more of, and don't take this as the wrong way. Some may be offended by this, but I don't think you will be. It's more like Canadian. So like when I mean that, and like it's more chewy, because their grain that they use in their Canadian whiskey is more chewy and viscous, I feel like. So this wheat gets more cereal, like wheatiness to it. So more cream of wheaty with like maple syrup or brown sugar notes than the other ones. Like you get a little bit of that, but this one is like that that feel of the cereal grain, like where it is chewy and it's a thick whiskey. That's what I get out of this. And that's what I'm a big fan of, is how thick it is, because you don't have to drink a lot of it to know that you've drank a little bit of it, right? Like it just goes for a long time. It's got a huge mouthfeel and viscosity, but I didn't realize obviously I probably didn't read up on the mash bills before this, but I didn't realize how extreme it was. I knew it was extreme, but I didn't think it was as extreme as you just said. So that's really crazy. And that explains why it's so different to me, as I'm just like sitting here sipping on it over and over throughout the podcast tonight.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair assessment. And I'll tell you true, until I built these mash bills and produced them for Old Elk, I was probably 38 years into my career at that point. I had never produced any mash bills with wheat in it. So it's been a learning curve for me, and continues to be a learning curve. But what I have seen, interestingly enough, is because our two mash bills are either no corn or low corn, it really allows the wheat flavors that wheat brings to the table come to the top, where they would otherwise be masked or covered up by the robust characteristics that the corn brings to the table. One of the other things that I guess I learned is I really had felt that the wheat bourbon and wheat whiskey were both going to be ready at 4 years old. And again, because they're lighter products and flavor less robust because of the low corn or no corn, the wheat bourbon actually needed 5 years of maturity to carry it, and the wheat whiskey took 6 years. So, and those products both, as they continue to age up to probably 10 or maybe 12 years old, will continue to improve with more age. But, for me, I just have seen really flavors attributed to what wheat brings to the table that I haven't seen before. And it's because the corn's not there to really cover it up so much.
So it sounds like you came around to the wheat the opposite way as Steve Nally did to rye.
Well, we had I had the latitude with the 95% wheat whiskey. From a technical aspect, wheat and rye, especially the high contents of rye and wheat, bring difficulties to mashing and fermentation. They're viscous, and they have a propensity to foam, which is always creates negative quality characteristics. So really everything that we learned in Lawrenceburg, probably over a 30-year period or maybe even longer, on how to produce that 95% rye mash bill and control the viscosity of the mashes as well as the foaming. Everything we learned about how to do it with rye actually translated directly to the wheat. And that's really what led me to take the daring step of making a 95% wheat, knowing that it could really deliver some technical issues and maybe even some quality issues. But everything we learned on how to perfect that high rye mash bill in Lawrenceburg translated to the high wheat. So, again, that was, really me leveraging my experience, if you will. But
well, as I say, like you talked about the fermentation process and that, just the foaming, but also when it sits, like wheat almost gets like it's a pie, like it gets so dense when it ferments, which is I think the craziest thing. Wheat is thick, don't get me wrong, but like that wheat will like sit on top and it almost looks like you have a loaf of bread that you can cut and just eat it right off of it. I wouldn't dare say eat it. You'd be in for a long, long hangover. But it would be very tasty.
Yeah, it would be, for sure. No, you're right. I think, rye and wheat both have different components in the cereal grain that corn doesn't. They're not fermentable products, but they do add challenges to especially the fermentation part of it. And, if you can't control that or reduce the viscosities with enzymes, which is what we found, we were able to, as the enzyme manufacturers got better at what they did, we teamed up with several of those folks, and we wound up hitting on enzymes that would break the viscosity and had the added benefit of breaking the foam. So again, it was an evolution, learning all that over long periods of time. But again, that was I had the good fortune of being part of that. Excuse me. And was able to leverage that with the Old Elk mash bills.
So you can teach an old dog new tricks, huh? Is that what you're saying?
No, absolutely.
I'll tell my wife that she'll as I get older here, and I'm still young in my marriage. Scott's at 10, I'm at 5. I'm sure your lovely wife has put up with you longer than ours combined. But we still have to learn new tricks along the way, whether it's whiskey or marriage, I'm sure.
Well, I guess the beauty of this business is you really never quit learning, and you never know all of it. For me, the last 5 years, and really a big drawing card for me to leave a facility that I was very comfortable at and had spent 38 years in, to join a new company. What was really intriguing to me was I was going to learn about sales, marketing, distribution. And that really, for me, kind of rounded out my whole career. I'd seen all the other aspects during the 38 years in Lawrenceburg, but never the last 3. And I've been heavily involved in that for the last 5 years since we've really launched our brands. and it's been fun. It's I don't claim to understand it all. It's I'd much rather be doing distillation and fermentation, but it's still it's still a learning experience, and it's always gratifying when you can learn something new and then apply it.
Yeah. So speaking of learning something new, I know something that you all didn't do a ton of in your old career was finishing barrels, right? So, not only are you adding wheat when you were really familiar with rye, you add that to your portfolio, but now you're adding this finishing complex. And I was, I said this kind of just starting off, like I only know of one finished wheat whiskey on the market that just comes to mind right away. And Rabbit Hole has one in Derringer. And so as you kind of think about this and taking, your mash bills and your finished product and finishing your products, like what was the allure of trying to do, some of those port barrels or, some of the other barrels that you all have kind of in the hopper?
Well, again, it's always wanting to be innovative, and it's always wanting to have an opportunity to bring something interesting to the table. Again, and not in large volumes, but our production team was Melinda Maddox. Really is responsible for the success of our cask finish program. She did a lion's share of the work, and had a lion's share of the thought process as to what type barrels she thought we should age our products in. So, we did. We acquired some Tawny Port barrels, Oloroso Sherry barrels, Armagnac and Cognac barrels, and we're on our third fill of those particular types of barrels, and have been through 2 rounds of harvest, and the products are coming out really quite nice. But really, Mel really gets all the credit for that, and so some of those products are hitting the shelf, are already on the shelf and continue to hit the shelf. Something new that's still percolating, if you will, is we've got Old Elk Rye being cask finished in 2 types of rum barrels. So those should be coming of age probably in the next month or 2, and I would look forward to, if you can get them, looking forward to those. I was lucky enough to have sampled a couple of those barrels about a month ago, and they're going to be delicious. I can tell you true that again, there'll be something special to behold.
So are those single barrels, or will they end up being a blend?
It could be both.
Okay.
I think we've got maybe. I think we have maybe 30 barrels doing the cask finish currently. So I think it could be a little of both.
Gotcha. Because I know you guys are having pretty good success with a lot of the single barrel program as well.
Yeah,
I know Jake's come across at least one really, really nice single barrel. So
shout out to George Laboda and Atlas and Mason for picking a really solid single barrel. Because I think it's uniquely shows your expression, right? You all have done a great job blending, but uniquely showing those single barrels is really interesting, because now you're seeing your product stand on its own.
Yeah, no, I think we did I think we did 400 single barrels last year, and I think we're targeting to do 1,300 this year. So it's been a very successful program to date. And again, I do a lot of virtual tastings and barrel picks with folks, and it's tremendous fun and really gratifying as well when they pick a dandy. So
definitely. And so I'm excited to seek out one of those finished whiskeys because I think it'll just give a different perspective on what you all are doing with your whiskey. And I think that's one of the things we've talked about this going back to the beginning of January this year. We said, trending things. I think one, we said American single malt would be one, but the other trending thing we said was finishing barrels is here to stay, right? People have continued to, enjoy different products, but finished products give a new light to everybody because there's infinite different types of wine. There's other types of, port or what have you that are out there that you can grab and you can do different things with, because a PX barrel could be different than an X, whatever other port barrel or tawny port barrel. And then you have, Armagnac and, Grand Marnier type, products are big now as well. So it's, or VDN, let me not use Grand Marnier. So VDN type barrels are really big right now. So there's a lot of, ability to differentiate your profile even more once you, have a barrel finishing program.
No, it's a great opportunity to, add to the flavor profiles that you build in your mash bills. And by doing secondary finishes, introducing additional really nice flavors to an already good product. So it's a lot of fun and very pleasing for the consumer.
So now I'm going to put your feet to your fire.
Oh.
So we've talked about two different, unique experiences here. There's a lot of hunting that people do, and it's summer and we're about to head into the curve, and, there's birthdays and all that fun stuff happening. If you were Greg, if you weren't to hunt out a Master's Blend series, which one would you hunt? And if you were hunting a finished product of yours, which one would you hunt?
Man, all of them. No.
They're all your babies, right?
Man, that's a tough choice. That all of the products, they're, again, from a quality perspective, they're as good as you can find anywhere. My palate's going to be different than your palate. So, things that I like may not be pleasing to you. So, I don't know that I would try to limit anybody to just try and do single one out. I would actually encourage them to try all of them and then pick the one that maybe they like, because again, what I think is good is going to be different than what you think is good. It's really not much different than food. So,
gosh, that was the best company line I've ever heard.
That's the way I would seriously approach it, because each one of those products is unique in its own way, and it does bring different things to the table. And I would just encourage you to try them all, and then pick the one that you may have an inkling to be a favorite,
and then buy the rest of them.
Well, that'd be fine too.
I would say grab the Infinity Blend. It's got like this vanilla, caramel, banana. I don't know. It's super rich. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like a really rich whiskey, and it's something that, it's all over the place, but it's very, very good. And to just think of the components that went into that, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a blend that I'm incredibly proud of, and at the time of launch, I said that it's my best blend to date. So it is an incredibly good product. But again, it's individual, and all our other products that we're putting out are equally good, but they're going to be different. So again, I can only speak from the quality spectrum, and I can tell you anything with Old Elk's name on it. From a quality perspective, they're going to be as good or better than anybody else. Anybody else is out there, and I would go toe to toe on quality with anybody out there in the market.
If you're seeking out an Old Elk bottle on the shelf and you see the one that comes in the box that has the Old Elk pourer, you got to get that one, because you got to have that on your bar.
Yeah, that's our value-added package. They generally come out around the holidays. So yeah, they're very nice. They have that Old Elk pour, which is very, very fun and very cool. And look forward to those. I'd say start looking for those around the holidays.
Yeah. No, it does make a great package, and I've seen them out, and I'm like, I'm jealous. I gotta go find one myself. I don't have one yet, because who doesn't want to pour bourbon out of an elk mouth? That's just the way the cookie crumbles on that one. So, Greg, it's been great catching up. It's been a lot of fun talking about these new releases. I really like the double wheat. I think if you're a wheat fan, which I am, this takes it to a whole new level. So, just kudos to what you all are doing to build off your profile and build off your whiskey that you all have. I think that's the great thing is you're not settling just for your standard offerings, but you're building on top of that and staying in your lanes, right? Which is really big. You're not going and like trying to do something that you're not. You're staying in your profile is what you've built off of and what you've become known for. And that's the biggest compliment when you can just elevate that, even a little bit further. So, great job on what y'all are doing. I'm so glad we had you back on. It's been a lot of fun just learning other nuances, right? That we talked about that we didn't even talk about in our first episode. So really appreciate you joining the Bourbon Lens tonight and all you do for the whiskey community.
Well, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you guys. Getting to talk whiskey is always fun. And you guys have always been good to me and Old Elk. So can't wait for the next episode down the road. And many thanks and all that to you guys. It's always fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do it sometime before episode 300, right?
Or we just do it episode 300 and we really celebrate.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, everyone, we really appreciate you all listening to another episode of the Bourbon Lens. As always, please rate us, give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast listening app. You can go over to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook and follow us at Bourbon Lens. You can also go over on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook and follow Old Elk. They would love a follow, and I know they interact on social media as well. If you want more exclusive content, go check out patreon.com/Bourbon Lens. There's really cool stuff coming up. We have Tasting Club in July and August lined up with 2 great brands. So go over to patreon.com/Bourbon Lens to sign up for exclusive tasting opportunities in July and August. And last but not least, thanks again for Greg for joining us tonight, and cheers.
Cheers.